Hey, thank you for making time.
Oh, that's no problem. So you were saying that you were having a hard time finding the Gill Sans Nova font, right?
Hmm.
So if I go to Adobe, it is on the Adobe website. So can I share my screen and show you how to activate it?
Yeah. Hmm.
So I'll share my screen. And then if you go to Adobe, so you want to choose Adobe font.
Hmm.
The actual website is fonts.adobe.com. And then you'll need to log in under your account. And then if you do a search in here, so if I do a search for Gill Sans, you can see that Gill Sans Nova comes up here. And then to activate the fonts, what you would do is you could go to add font right here. Now this has got the whole family. So if
Hmm.
you want, you could add the entire family. So to add the entire family, you would go to, let me see, right here where it says, oops, add family. And then you can click that and you can add that entire family to your system then.
Hmm. I was only looking at the panel at the text.
If you're
I did,
doing, were you doing it in Illustrator or what
yeah,
software
Illustrator.
in Illustrator? So in Illustrator, if I was to do it, you can also do it this way without going to the website. If you go into here and you do a search for a font, so if I did Gill Sans, like it's going to come up now because I have it loaded. But if I didn't have it loaded, I could go to find more and then it would show the font. And then over here on the right hand side, you can activate. So here it says deactivate because I already have it activated, but you could do it that way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you have other questions about the assignment?
Yeah. It's minor things, I think, because I'm not very proficient with the tools. I just
Yeah, sure.
see
Okay.
how the line is not straight. So I
It's
kind of
not.
I don't know.
What do you mean it's not straight? It actually does look like it's straight to me.
To me, it looks like it's kind of going upward.
Oh, is it? Can you give?
Yeah.
Did you give me the file already? Did you put it into the assignment?
Mm-mm.
Can you give me the
Oh
file?
wait, no, I did. Yeah.
You did. Okay. I'm going to get it
Yeah.
and I'm going to open it and then I can take a look at it. I'll show you how. I'm going to stop sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. Cancel that. All right. I'll share my screen. Give me a second. Let me get to the assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't. Oh, no, it's the wrong one, isn't it? Project 1 download this.
Oh, I didn't upload the new version then.
Okay. Can you upload it?
Mhm.
Or you can also, if you want to, if it's easier for you, you can put it in the chat in Zoom. Do you know how to do that? So if you go to the
No,
in the
let
Zoom
me see.
window, so if you're looking in the Zoom window and you can see both of us, at the
Mm-hmm.
bottom of that window, there's a series of icons. One of them says chat. If you click on that, you should see a white area on the right-hand side of the screen. And then at the very bottom of that area, there is a series of little icons. One of them is a page with the corner turned over, which is for file. If you click on that, you can go to your computer and then you can upload the file and give it to me that way.
I have a screenshot. Let me save it first.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same that I sent you, that I uploaded is the same problem. I feel like it's not straight.
Okay.
Save as. Let me try now.
I'm just going to go and check on my students a minute because I have them setting up a display case. I'll be back in a minute. Okay.
Mhm.
No, I'm good. I've got a meeting going on Zoom. So. All right, so then we will head out. You guys can take off. Thanks very much for your help. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your help.
All right. Have a good evening. All right, I'm ready. I got your file.
Mhm.
All right, I'll share my screen. See ya.
Mhm.
Oh, Anne, on Friday, I have a friend coming in from England, so I won't be able to meet on Friday, I think. All right.
You may have to give me 2 hours next.
Yeah, I've got to go up to LAX in the mornings. Yeah, thanks. See ya. So you're talking about these lines, right, Anya?
Mhm.
So if I want to check to see if it's straight, one suggestion I have is you could take a guide from the top here and you could drag it down. So you can see that this one actually, it is a little bit off, actually, you're right. Do you see how here it's a little bit further down? So I didn't notice that actually, to be honest with you, but I can see it now. So if I wanted to make sure that it stays exactly straight,
Mhm.
I can position this right on the end like that.
How can I do the guide?
Oh, so you've got to have the ruler open. If the ruler is not there, you can do Command R. Are you on a Mac or a PC?
Mac.
So on a Mac, it would be Command R.
Mhm.
Can I share this video with the class, by the way?
Mhm.
So if you're doing it on a PC, it would also be the same, but it would be Control R. So that just toggles either the rulers on or off, right? So if I wanted to make a vertical guide, I would use the ruler on the on the left-hand side and drag it out like this. So this way I could make sure that they line up here. And then to drag a guide that's horizontal, I would drag it from this top ruler down like that. So if I position it right on that anchor point right there, and then we go over to the other side and we zoom in on it, they are actually off a little bit. So if we take this point now, for me to rotate it so that it's exactly in position, I want to rotate it from this position right here. Not by default, it's going to rotate from the middle of that line. So as I rotated it up this side, it would rotate the other side down. Does that make sense? But if I click right here, whilst I'm on the rotate tool, so this line has to be selected. If I click right here, that changes what's called the point of origin. That's where the object is rotating from. So now it's rotating from that point. Now, if I go back to this side, all I have to do is drag this up to that position.
Okay.
And now it should be exactly straight. Now, to be honest with you, it might actually be easier for you simply with that line selected. I want to go to Appearance. And in the Appearance panel, I would go to the pull down on the side, and you want to make sure that New Art has Basic Appearance is turned off. That means that when I draw the next line, it would have that same appearance. So if I wanted to, I could probably it might be easier for you just to redraw these. But when you...
Yeah, that's what my question was, from scratch. How do I make it
Yeah,
straight?
so if you want it to be straight, draw the line as I drag out to make it. If I hold the shift key will constrain it so that it stays straight.
Oh.
Okay, so that line now is exactly straight. I actually made it too long. But...
Yeah, okay.
But if I now drag this back like this, I'm also holding shift. Shift again is constraining it so it stays straight. And then to duplicate it, if I drag it down, I can hold shift. Shift is keeping it straight. So it's dragging it down perfectly vertically. I've also got these smart guides. You see those pink lines that keep showing up? So smart guides tells you when something's straight. It also gives you, so here it's showing me that the distance between its original position and the new position is halfway. So on here, I'm going to delete these and we'll start from the beginning. So we're going to have one line that goes right here. And I'm a little bit off there actually, so let me move it up. So this is supposed to be for the cap height, right? So this would actually be right there, of course. We don't really need the guides now anyway, because because I'm just copying it, right? This would be the X height right there. And then this would be the baseline, right? The other suggestion I would have for you is that right now these guides, I think they're a little bit too strident. I think that they could be more subtle. So if you the top here, if you change it to 0.5 of a point, then I might change these spaces between to a smaller number, like maybe 5 by 5, so that they're smaller dashes. So obviously, to some extent, that's a matter of taste. But I feel like the lines here kind of compete with the lettering too much. Whereas
it's just the idea. I just wanted to get it on paper, or virtually on paper.
Yeah,
and then to change the so it speaks with it, you know. I got frustrated that I wasn't able to see how I wanted to show cap height. The like brackets, I didn't know how to make them also.
So this bracket here you're talking about, right?
Yeah, so I just did, I didn't like that so much.
Yeah, okay, I see. So what could we do? So you want to have something which shows that distance, basically, right? If you were to draw, I think the idea of using red is good because it makes it stand out. I probably wouldn't have this be quite as thick. Maybe bring that down a little bit. But one suggestion I have is that you have, if you go to the stroke panel, in here you have these arrowheads. So you could put arrowheads. Now the arrowhead here is too big for the stroke, right? So we can scale the arrowhead down. I could make that a smaller size relative to the stroke. So I'm doing that right here in the stroke panel.
I didn't see that with the stroke, the arrows. I thought I have to draw it.
Yeah, no. So that's why I was showing you this, because I figured that you may not realize that, but you could make like a little arrow there. This is the other side of it. So if I use the same kind of arrow, I forget which one I had actually, this one maybe. No. And then this is the same number. So let's do 45. And let's have that also be 45. So I must be using a different arrowhead there. Let's make sure I'm on the same one. So this is arrow 7. This is arrow 7. And then let's set both of them to the same number here. I think they could be a bit smaller on this one. So let's do 30 and 30. So you might do something like that. What do you think?
Yeah, that was the idea. Just I didn't know how to...
Yeah, okay, cool. I'm glad that helps. Is there anything else you want to know?
Yeah, no, just the idea to compare.
You're cutting out a little bit, right? I'm losing your
font to the new one. Well, how it changed? What is different between Nova and the original? So I was going to point it out.
You'll have to say that again, Anya, actually, because it kept cutting out when you were trying to say it.
Basically, I was just going to compare original font and type it out in original font, and then the Nova in font and then point out what's the difference.
Yeah, I like the idea of this. I remember you'd mentioned that. Yeah, I think you mentioned that in your message, and I like the idea of that. Yeah, it's pretty good. So you have the original version of Gill Sans already?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's a good idea. I like the idea of that. So if one thing you might consider doing is like, do you know already by looking at the Gill Sans Nova and by looking at the Gill Sans where the differences are?
Yeah, the new one is more square, right? It's not as
okay. So let me choose. So this is Gill Sans. This is actually Gill Sans regular, right? This is the original.
because I didn't have it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So let me make a duplicate of this, and I'm going to change this one so that it's that's Gill Sans Nova. And this is just Gill Sans.
I have ideas and I collect knowledge about different types, and I really like it. But the problem is I'm not proficient with the tools, so sometimes I don't know how to implement it, how to do it.
How to do it.
Yeah.
Have you ever done like an Illustrator class?
Don't think so.
It might be a good idea for you to take a Illustrator class or a Photoshop class. But Illustrator would probably be a better class for you to take. So this is Gill Sans regular. This is Gill Sans Nova book. One of the things with the Gill Sans Nova that I could point out, first of all, is that it has a very large family. So do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has a very large family compared to the original Gill Sans, which I think when Eric Gill first designed it, there was just Gill Sans regular and bold. Maybe I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but I think it was Gill Sans regular and Gill Sans bold. There's an ultra bold version of Gill Sans that was designed later on. I think it was designed by somebody else, which doesn't really look like it very much. But as a whole family, it's never really had a whole collection. So like if I choose this one right here is Gill Sans, I do have light italic, regular italic, semi-bold, and semi-bold italic, and so on. Now, again, some of these have been added later on, I think. I don't think they were designed by Eric Gill at the time. I'd have to double check that, but I think that's probably true. But it certainly doesn't have as many as the Gill Sans Nova. So like one of the things when you're comparing them here, for instance, on this one, if I was to set this to light, and then I set the Gill Sans Nova to light, we're sort of comparing the same things now. So you were saying on the Gill Sans Nova that you think it's squarer. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, the dots, right? For example, the eye, I mean, in comparison to the original.
So the tittle on the eye, you mean? Like the dot on the eye?
Here it's square, but the ones that I saw was round.
Yeah, so this is, let's go back to, like if we go to book. This is the condensed book. Let's choose.
I took more notes in my notebook, is in another room, but I pointed out the differences for me.
Yeah, okay. On that one's book. And then this one, let me change this to regular. Oh, yeah. So on the regular version, it has a round tittle on the original one. It's an interesting idea because they are very, very similar. So it's interesting to combine. What I was going to suggest as well is that if you wanted to, you could put one letter over the top of the other by, if you did create outlines like this, Shift Command O, so that this is just drawn objects, and you were to change it to a very thin stroke. And then you did the same thing with this one, and you outlined it and changed it to a thin stroke. And maybe make it a different color, so maybe this one is red and that one is blue or something. And then you could actually put them like over the top of each other. That way you're comparing like the actual shape of them, Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I can see on this, there's quite a big difference there now. And this is, again, it's not quite the same version of the font because this one that I'm using is on the original is regular and the other one is book. It also looks like the tracking is a little different on this one. So, you know, if I put the letters actually overlapping each other, each individual one, this one obviously is a little bit thicker. So maybe you could try it with the bold versus the bold and see how they compare as well, you know?
Yeah.
The other way you could do it is instead of using a stroke, is you could still have it be a fill, but on the filled part of it, we could have it be a different color. And then you could change the blending mode. So if I go up here under opacity and I changed it to say multiply, my zoom interface is getting in the way. It would overlap like this, and that way you'd be able to see where they don't kind of fit together. Okay, that might be another way of representing it. All right. But I like the idea. I think it's a really good idea to compare the two fonts. I think it would be quite interesting.
Also, how I watched the video 2 times, but I kind of didn't grasp how to mark or highlight a part of a letter.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. So let's say I wanted to, let me separate these a second. Let's say on this letter S, I just want to show the spine. I could draw a shape over the top of this. So if there's a couple of different ways we could do this. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of different ways. If I draw a shape over the top of this through here, so the spine would basically be this bit. Let's move that up a little bit. So like sort of through there. I'll change the color of this. So I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, which is hidden with the measuring tape right now. And I'll eyedropper that color. And then if I select both of these shapes, so I've got the ash selected plus that red shape that's sitting over the top. Now if I choose the shape builder tool, which is this one right here, I can option click. So if you're on a PC, you'd hold Alt, and then you can click either side of it, and it'll get rid of anything that's outside of that shape. So then we're just left with that part in the middle. Another way you could do it is like this. If I was to cut it with the knife tool, I could cut it here. So when you're doing it with the knife tool and you want to make a straight cut, you have to hold Shift and Option. So on a PC, that would be Shift and Alt, and then cut through it. Now, when I'm cutting through that, it was cutting the background as well. I mustn't have had this selected. So you want to select this shape, then hold Shift Option, then it's just cutting through this shape. And I'm doing the same thing here. I don't know why you have to hold Shift Option. Usually, in most situations, you just hold Shift. But for some reason, with that particular tool, you have to hold both Shift and Option to make it go straight. Now, the difference is that with this one, I have a gap in between now where I've cut them. So if I wanted to edit how far this comes down, I can really do that. With the other method that I used, where we started off with a shape that we drew over the top using the shape builder tool, if you wanted to edit it afterwards, it would be easier because it would be a separate shape. So like here, if I wanted to, so I option click outside of it. So let's say I wanted to trim a little bit more off of this red shape. I could still do that on this one because it's a separate shape. So I could cut a little bit more with the knife tool and delete that. Whereas this one I couldn't because there's a gap underneath it. We could, of course, when we're first doing this one, if I go back. So on this one right here, if I was to, I'm still going to use the knife tool, but before I cut it, I'm going to do copy, paste in front. Now, in this case, I'm using transparency, so it's darkening it, but I'm just making a copy of it and pasting it in front of it. Now, if I cut it with the knife tool and cut it here and here, I can delete the bits on the top and the bottom. And then we have that separate piece inside, which is still a copy on the top. So either of those methods. The other one that you might need is like, let's say you want the counter for this shape. If I wanted to change the color of that hole, in other words, I could select this letter form. I'll do a copy and paste in front. Oops. I actually copied the whole word there, so let me go back. So I do copy. I'm using the group selection tool, by the way. Do you understand the difference between these selection tools in Illustrator?
I think group selection selects more, right? More shapes.
Not exactly. So the selection tool actually will always select the group. So in this case, you can see it's selecting all of that text because it's grouped together.
Yeah.
But if I use the group selection tool, I can select an object which is in that group. And if I click a second time, it then selects the entire group. So in this case, if I wanted to select a letter which has got a hole in it, like this one right here, if I was to choose the selection tool, it's always going to select that entire group, which is not what I want. If I choose the group selection tool and I click just on the outside of this letter A, I've got the outside, but I haven't got the inside. So if I click a second time, now I have that group because this is a group. All right, the group selection tool allows you to select objects that are part of a group. And then if you click a second time, it selects the group. So in this case, we've got that level of grouping. If I click a third time, by the way, now I've got that whole group because there's a group inside of a group. Does that make sense? Okay, so with this one, to select it, I choose the group selection tool. I click on it once and then click on it a second time. Now I've got the whole of that letter A because I've got the hole in the middle as well. Now I do copy, paste in front. So now I've got another version of this sitting on the top. Okay. Now if I delete the outside part of that, we'll be left with just the inside. That didn't work for some reason. Let me try that again. That my copy? Yeah. I'm going to make this into a fill so it's clearer. So I'm going to select the outside and hit delete. Now we've just got the inside bit left, the counter. So basically what I did was on that top shape that I'd copied, I just select the outside and then that inside part is left behind.
I see.
I think that's probably it in terms of that. Is there anything else you had questions about?
For a different assignment, different class, also in Illustrator, the pen tool. At first I was able to draw with it, but then all of a sudden after every line it started to just fill it, like connect the dots and fill it, but I didn't want it to fill.
What is it that you have to trace?
Just a logo. I have to make a shape.
Okay. So I'm going to show you how to trace something. You're tracing something, right?
Probably.
Are you tracing over a sketch or something?
Yeah, I sketched the logo. Now I have to do it in Illustrator.
Okay. So let me see if I can find something I can use to demonstrate it with. Do you have the sketch?
I think so.
You give me the sketch in the chat.
But it's a hand sketch with the paper.
Yeah, it's okay. And then I'm going to have to go in a minute, okay?
Okay, I sent it.
Okay, cool.
Is there a difference for making logos in Photoshop or Illustrator?
It's better to use Illustrator. Always better to use Illustrator.
I like Illustrator better too.
The reason you would use Illustrator for doing logos is because you'll end up with something which is vector-based. And you want it to be vector-based so that you can scale it to whatever size you want it. So you may afterwards, after you've designed the logo, you may put it into Photoshop to create some other effect on it, maybe. But generally speaking, logos are always designed in Illustrator. All right, I've got the file now. I'll download it. I'll share my screen. So I'm going to make a new Illustrator file. And then I'm going to just paste this into here. Oh.
There are many sketches on one page. It's number 7.
That's okay. So I'm going to do Shift Command P on a Macintosh, Shift Control P if you're doing it on a PC. This is file place, by the way. So file place, Shift Command P. And then I just downloaded it. So I'm going to go to the downloads folder, and it's this one, right? Logo sketch. So when I place it, I want to place it as a template. Right here, hit place. When it places it, it's going to place it on a special layer, which is a template layer. And by default, that layer will be locked. And I want to move this around. So I'm going to unlock the layer by clicking on that lock icon. Then I can move this around. So is it this one right here that you want to draw?
No, it's 7. Number 7. The middle one.
This one here, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to, in Illustrator, so that I can isolate this, I'm going to draw a rectangle over the top of it like that. And then I'm going to select both the sketch image and that rectangle. And I'm going to go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. So that we have this by itself. And then I can move this into here and we can scale it a little bit smaller. So it hasn't actually cropped it. Like the image is all still there. If I click with the group selection tool, I can move this around inside of there. I'm going to lock that layer back up. What does it say going down?
It's the person's name. It's Gohars. It's like
Go
a hand.
Yeah. So it's Gohar.
Yes.
This is an R. Okay. So when you're drawing with the pencil, I'm going to draw this on a separate layer right here. When you're drawing, you're saying that it's filling in, right?
Yeah, it becomes like black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going like this when you're filling in. Okay. You really want it just to be a line, do you?
Yeah.
Okay. So over here in the fill and the stroke, I can switch this so it's just a stroke then.
Oh.
Okay. And then like when you're working with the pen tool, I'm going to go back a little bit here. Let's set that. I can also just set this as a stroke here. Now it's got a white fill. But if you set this here to that red diagonal line, that means none. So the stroke is in the back right here. The fill is in the front. If I click on the stroke, that brings that to the front. So if I wanted the stroke to be none, I would click on it now, right? I'll undo that. But if the fill is in the front, that's what I'm changing. Okay, so once I've got that set up with the black stroke, when you're creating the path, you want to use as few points as possible. And you're basically adding a point wherever there's a change in direction. So this line is going up, it's going up. It's actually coming out slightly here maybe. So you could maybe add a point here. But I think really I would go up to around about here. So if you imagine this going up, it starts to come back around here, right? So I could go all the way up to here probably and drag this out.
And how do I make it curve?
So it's because as I'm dragging it, I click and drag. So there's two things that you're doing at the same time here. It's how far you're dragging it and the angle that you're dragging it. So I would suggest that as you're doing it, do it fairly slowly so you can see that develop. And you'll get used to how that works. Now this next path, you can see that we get a preview of where that's going to go. And it's actually going in a slightly different place from where I want it, right? Like it's going further up than you want it to go there. So if you wanted to, at this point right here, I could click back on that anchor point, and you notice that it removes that trailing handle. So now I can go in any direction I want. So actually, I think that that point should be a little bit lower down. If I click and drag like this now, if I click back on this point, I can then go over to here and click and drag to position it more precisely. Again, here, I might want to click back on it. I think from here, you can see it's not quite following that same path. If I click back on it, I can make that move in whichever direction. Do you see what I mean? So here, I can click and drag. I can come back to this point over here, click and drag, go up to here.
Position it, and then it shapes.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You position the next point,
and
it shapes when you drag.
Yeah, so when you're positioning this point, you both click and drag, right? So wherever those handles are going, it's creating the curve. This handle is creating wherever curve comes next. So in this case, for instance, you sort of look like the line is coming back on itself. So if I was to click here, I could make like a little small loop like that, and I can continue on my way around to probably around about here actually, and carry it all the way on and drag this around. Now, as you're working with the pen tool, if you use the space bar, because you might run out of space, you want to be fairly zoomed in so you can see accurately where you're positioning it. This keyboard shortcut can be really useful because you can then move to a different position and you're still connected. As soon as you let go of the space bar, you're still on the pen tool and you can continue on your way. So you don't have to go over to here, move it, then go back to the pen tool, then connect back onto it, and then continue. You just hold space bar, move it, and then you can let go, and then you can continue drawing. You know, the other thing you can do is if you hold Command, this would be Control on a PC, you could then get the direct selection tool. So if you moved a point and the point wasn't quite in the right place, like this one, maybe I want to drag this handle a little bit further, I can do that whilst I'm still drawing. So I can move this back into position here. Also, here, I think I need another anchor point to bring this down a little bit. So if I put my cursor over a selected path, it automatically becomes the Add Anchor Points tool. So I can click there. It's added a point. I hold Command, and then I can drag that into position. Then notice as soon as I let go of Command, I'm still on the pen tool, and I can continue drawing from where I left off. Does that make sense? So just to recap that, first of all, use as few points as possible. You're adding a point wherever the line changes direction, basically. So that isn't necessarily always quite that true, but basically that's a good general rule of thumb. And then as you're drawing, in terms of the keyboard shortcuts, spacebar will give you the hand tool, so you can move to a different position. And then if you put your cursor over a path, it becomes the Add Anchor Points tool when you're on the pen tool. So you could add a point. If you wanted to take a point out, you can put your cursor over an anchor point. And notice that my cursor now has a minus sign next to it. So this would allow me to remove a point. So if I click here, it's become the Add Anchor Points tool. I can add a point, hold Command. I've got the direct selection tool. I can move that path. Or I could also, by moving the handles, I could change the shape of the curve by adjusting that handle. Now I let go, and I'm still on the pen tool. So I can continue drawing my paths from there. I'm not sure from here exactly where you go. So you've got this line that comes down. You're trying to create something that feels like it is a continuous flowing line, basically, right?
Yeah, I thought maybe to put, I already found out how to do the text vertically. So to make the name and then connect it to the painting or to the sketch.
So like with a font, you mean, have the...
Yeah, so connect.
So do you want to have this be like a piece of lettering, or you want it to be drawn?
No, lettering.
Oh, like a font? Oh, okay. So you could use this vertical type tool? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what I tried. And then connect the letters separately. I connected them.
Okay. Do you know which font you wanted to use for that?
I didn't give much thought to it. I just tried to know how to do it.
Okay, so so this is GOHQ. No.
A,
G
R,
O H.
H.
What's this letter here? A.
Yeah, A.
A. And then the next one is R, and the last one is S. Okay.
Yeah, but between the R and the S, there's this apostrophe.
Okay, yeah. All right, so I'm going to choose a different font, one which might flow a little bit better. So I'm going to scale this out a little bit. As I'm scaling, by the way, I'm holding shift, so we keep the same proportions. Then let's try. Do you think it should be kind of flowing like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try this one. First of all, I need to outline the type. So Shift Command O. And then to make them connect, like I could take this one now, obviously, and bring it closer together.
That's how I did it.
Yeah, okay. And then if I wanted to connect this line up to here, I could draw a path that goes from here to here. Like that. Make it into a stroke. And then we can match the stroke thickness to this. So here it's a little bit too thick. But if I choose 0.75 maybe, you can also use this tool. This is called the width tool. So at the bottom here, I'm going to pull this out a little bit so that it retains that width. And then here I'll pull it in. So it's getting thinner towards that bottom edge. My curve is not quite right. So I'm going to use the direct selection tool here and then click on here and then I can readjust this. So I'll bring that in a little bit. So now by using the width tool, we can have this part be slightly thinner than that part. So it feels more like a calligraphic line. Does that make sense? Now, at a certain point, you can also expand this object expand appearance. This is now a filled object. So if you look at this in outline mode, it looks like this. So do you understand outline and preview in Illustrator?
Yeah, but I don't know how.
Preview, and this is outline. So Command Y or Control Y on a PC is what allows you to toggle between those two. When you're looking at it in outline mode, all you're seeing is the actual vector shape. No, none of the fill, no stroke, no effects, anything like that. Just the actual vector shape. So here, you know, if we had to fine tune it, we could go in here and readjust it. We could unite these together by using Shape Builder and drag through there so that literally becomes one shape. You know, so now this is all connected together. And then if I wanted to connect this to it, I could select across there. I could select across here, sorry. And then I could use Pathfinder Unite. So Unite or Shape Builder doesn't really matter. Shape Builder, I'd have to drag through them. Pathfinder, I would just click on Unite, but it would then become just one shape. Oh, in this case, I probably didn't have it selected quite right because it didn't combine it properly. So let me try that again. Yeah, there we go. Now it's just one shape. You see how there's no connection, there's no separation there now. So you don't necessarily have to do that right off the bat, but ultimately, if you're designing a logo, you'd probably want to connect it all together.
Interesting. Okay.
And then this part, again, if you wanted to connect this, you could do a similar kind of thing where you have a stroke that comes up and connects through there somehow. Maybe it comes through there. Okay.
Can I get the recording too for this?
Yeah. So I'm going to post it for the class if that's all right. So when I send it, I'll put it into individual meetings and critiques for week 6. There's a page in the modules, and I'll also post it as an announcement. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to run actually because I've got to go running with my wife.
Enjoy.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.